I'm now going to ask Will Mansell to talk to us. Will's been working with the Hotspots Network on levelling up our communities and our aspirations for Gloucestershire. So he's going to give us his view from the voluntary sector and from a wide range of other people in the voluntary sector. So over to you, Will.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. Has anyone ever seen that interview where the man got on the BBC News by mistake when he was going for a job interview?
Taxi driver.
Yeah, it's very much why I'm here today. I offered, as part of the Hotspots network, to coordinate just with the agenda with Di, and now I'm here talking about it. So, fun for me. Thanks for having us. I'm part of a group called the Hotspots Network, which is a new group of VCSE bodies that got together after COVID when everyone was obsessed with the phrase building back better, which I notice Renee used, but often now we've kind of got bored of that or moved on. But this group met, and we thought, because we'd done various bits during the pandemic, that we would have some ideas of how to build back better. And so we got together to start something of a VCSE union so that we could organise collectively. And then here we are, able to talk at policy events like this. So first of all, let me introduce them. If you could stand up for me, if you could, hotspotters. You've got Mark representing the Gateway Trust. And then we've got Indigo from GL11. We've got Sue and Reyes from Fair Shares and Friendship Cafe. And then Justine from the Community Builders Collective. I'm pretty sure that's all of us, if not. So we represent various different groups, and we've been thinking a lot about how do we build back better? How do we make our communities work more for everybody, particularly as our work tends to be focused on those working from the margins of society. And so as the levelling up agenda has been more and more talked about, we've been getting our own theories of what it is, what it needs to be, and actually some policies that we could peddle today and try and persuade those in the room who are listening and taking part and those online to think, could these policies actually be used as we think about levelling up? So, first of all, what is the task before us? As already said, we've got these four goals specifically mentioned here. And when you read these goals, there are four things I've highlighted in red here that I think are the sort of basic principles of what levelling up might be. It's about improving living standards, it's about spreading opportunities, it's about a sense of community and local pride, and empowering local leaders and communities. Everybody around here would think, oh, that in general sounds pretty good, I think. But if you read it a bit more carefully, you can actually see that there's an extra challenge, an extra target given to all of us. This is in green here. It's especially for places where those opportunities are lagging. It's especially the places where they're the weakest. It's especially the places where they've been lost, and especially the places lacking local agency. So this levelling up agenda is targeted at those at the margins of our communities. And we've looked at the lower super output areas, and you can see broadly different areas of the county that have lower levels or higher levels of deprivation. And yet the Hotspots network work across a range of different areas, not just those 12 most deprived areas, but actually we work in communities like where I live in Minchinhampton, which if you look at its lower super output area is extremely rich. But if you live in a village like I do, you'll see there's a council estate on one side and a bunch of ginormous houses on the other side. And even in the areas which look incredibly rich, you've got food bank usage, you have antisocial behaviour, you've got all sorts going on. And so we're here to say it's not just about focusing on the most marginalised big areas, it's also allowing communities in smaller places to be able to say, in our community there are 100 people, or 10 people, or even one person who's been left behind. And when you read about the task the government has set us, it is especially for the places where they're lagging. It's especially for where they're the weakest. And so as we think about levelling up, we need to make sure that we are going to those places, finding those people, and being able to hear from them, which is what Sarah and Renee and Mark have all said. And so as Hotspots, we're here to think about how could we do that? How can we make sure we reach those bits in green? So our hypothesis as a group is that community capacity and building those skills is a massive underdeveloped part of the puzzle of how do we level up. We don't think levelling up will ever work if you don't use community-based organisations. These groups tend to work in the most marginalised communities, so immediately you're going to get a voice and a set of eyes and ears and hands and feet in those communities where levelling up needs to happen most. And therefore, if we're going to look at a strategic approach to levelling up, we must use community-based organisations. as I said, these groups tend to work in the most marginalised communities. If you run a food bank in the Cotswolds, surprise, surprise, you will hang out mainly with people who are on the margins of Cotswolds economy. Even if Cotswolds itself is lovely, if you go to a food bank, you'll find a whole range of humans suffering from food poverty. If you work for a local lunch club anywhere in the county providing lunch for lonely older people, you will get to know those people who are most able to benefit from it. And so as a hypothesis, we're saying if you don't talk to the groups that work there, you'll never get very far with levelling up. And therefore we need to have a strategic commitment to that. Easier said than done. It's been tried in the past and failed, but then lots of things were tried in the past and failed, and eventually we got it. It took a long time for people to work out how to fly, but eventually, after enough trying, we've created planes, and now we can go into new planets and the moon and all sorts. So even if old ways of trying to do community development didn't quite work, doesn't mean it's not the goal we should aim for. And if levelling up and the specific bids of levelling up don't appreciate this, they're doomed to failure, which will be a waste of all our time, money and effort. So if that's our hypothesis, how do we generate change on the ground? Well, the only way you get change is for someone to lead it. Now, seeing as we all live in different parts of the county, we can't have one person leading the entire county strategy because they won't live in the communities that need it. And in fact, you can't just have one person in the poorest community demanding all the money, saying, well, I want all the cash in my community. There are hundreds and thousands of micro communities in our county, and we need people in those communities to lead it. So we have to identify those leaders and invest and support in them. The best people who have the most granular, localised interests live in the communities they're part of. We know this because we have political systems that go from parish all the way to national, and at each level it's the people that are affected by that politician who get to vote for them. And so we need to make sure that we recognise that people who live somewhere normally know more what it's like. A little example is in my lovely village of Minchinhampton, we have a beautiful playing field. To get to the playing field from my council estate, you have to walk 15, 20 minutes round the village to get there. But as the crow flies, the field is about 50 foot from my house. If somebody would just knock a little hole in the fence, it would mean the children that live in the estate could go and play on the football field rather than in the cul-de-sac. And yet you wouldn't know that if you didn't live there. So we need people with local interest, local knowledge and local capacity to actually generate change on the ground. You don't get it by having conferences like this alone. We have to leave this room and then empower actual people living in the communities to do it. So we have 5 policy pillars, and these policy pillars you're all going to get the chance to debate in the breakout rooms in a minute. It's hard to read them on here, so we've got them broken down in future. But these 5 pillars are effectively picking up from our learning from the COVID crisis. As Sarah said, throwing money and volunteers suddenly allowed lots of groups to do a lot of things. That crisis moment has passed, and no one's suggesting that going back to a crisis mindset is the way forward. But what it did prove was there was incredibly strong capacity in local communities, and these policies would allow us to tap into that capacity in the long term. So this is the first one. The first policy we're suggesting people should look into today is increasing transparency and formalise collective risk-taking across the public and VCSE sectors when it comes to all levelling up bids and any other commissioning process. Why not fix the whole lot at once, not just levelling up? We would like to suggest that if you invite local groups to comment and scrutinise your levelling up bids, you'll get much better outputs. So this is about saying we need to work as partners. We don't want things done in secret cabinet meetings where no one actually watches them or gets the chance to see them, but actually we need to be engaging with the public in a positive, localised way to deliver that. And we've got a video now which we're going to see showing just how that can play out if people are willing to take that collective risk across communities.
My name's Ray and I work for Gloucester Community Building Collective as a community builder.
So my name is Matt Williams and I'm a community builder and I work for Gloucester Community Building Collective.
Really, we want to see people do the things that they love to do. So the way we do that, we kind of have a little two-pronged attack. We encourage people, we get to know residents, we discover what they're passionate about and we encourage them to kind of from the ground up take action on the things that matter to them. But also we look at the system, at statutory services, and we encourage them to sometimes step back or to listen to communities in a better way.
We're there in one sense to be in the background to facilitate, to encourage. We're not there to run projects or run things for people. And so one good example is we have one of our community builders, Karina, who's brilliant, and she's just worked in one area of Gloucester, in sort of Elmbridge and Long Levens, and she just got to know some of the residents, spent a bit of time with them. She then linked with the community centre, which was quite, I suppose, not being utilised. It was maybe seen as a drinkerman's club, and so she just got to know some of those people, and over time realised that some people just want to connect over a coffee. So she chatted to the community centre, said, well, would you be open